So we're reading today from Bhagavad Gita, the 15th chapter, the Supermost of all personalities. The sanctuary of supreme joy, Lord Krishna then said, by way of analogy, we may contemplate upon material creation as a great banyan tree whose extensive root system spreads upward to gain sustenance from the primal energies of the Supreme Person. Its branches, the different species of life, in turn grow downwards and then extend in all directions. The three binding forces of material nature are like nutrients drawn up through the roots to bring about the growth of the various types of senses and sense objects, which are represented by the twigs and stems. Conditioned actions within human civilization form the subsidiary roots which give further strength to the tree, and the verses of scripture which prescribe the means to gradually progress within the realms of matter are the tree's leaves. Caught up in the branches of this vast tree, the soul is unable to perceive the true form of the tree, its real foundation, its origin, and its full extent. One must therefore strive to become disconnected from this tree of mundane energy by cutting at its roots with a sharp sword of genuine renunciation. Thereafter one should seek entrance into the supreme spiritual abode, the place of everlasting life and love. Therein one must practice the ways of loving and surrendered service in the company of the Supreme Person, the ancient source of all emanations. Life everlasting in the eternal homeland, the sacred realm of the Supreme Person, is readily available to those unconfused souls whose consciousness is beyond desiring for false prestige, unencumbered by defective conceptions, fully aware of the eternality of the spirit, disinterested in mundane enjoyments and equal in pleasure and pain. My supreme abode is self-luminous and therefore has no need for the light of suns, moons, or fires. Those who become fully conscious of it never again lose that awareness. All of the eternal individual living beings are expanded portions of my own self. However, conditioned by connection with material nature, they remain as if shackled by the mind and senses. Just as fragrance leaves a flower and is carried far away by the breeze, so the living being leaving one body carries the subtle impressions of the last life into the next one. Applying consciousness to a particular grouping of senses, the soul enjoys the sounds heard through the ears, the sights seen by the eyes, the objects encountered by the tactile sense, the flavors perceived by the tongue, the fragrances entering the nose, and the stream of thought flowing through the mind. The unenlightened cannot understand how the conscious soul, being distinct from the body, sometimes dwells within the body and enjoys the world, and sometimes departs from it. Neither can they understand how the changing forces of material nature affect the conditions which the soul encounters in this world. Only those fortunate souls whose vision is illuminated with perfect understanding are able to see this all clearly. Those whose aspiration for divine communion with me has inspired them to become established in self-realization become directly aware of the truth concerning these matters, whereas those whose consciousness is immature remain ignorant of this and are absorbed in more rudimentary conceptions. The brilliance of the sun's effulgence by which the whole creation is illumined, the soothing light of the moon which bathes the earth at night, and the useful glow of fire, all of these should be understood as emanating from me. Being present within the earth, I maintain her in her orbit and give sustenance to all the forms of life which dwell upon her. I instill healing potency into all medicinal plants and pleasing flavor into all vegetables by my activation of the lunar cycle, and I release the transcendental and mellow flavors of divine ecstasy by becoming the juice of soma. I am the active agent who energizes the process of digestion in the bodies of all living creatures. I am the breath of life, the incoming air which nourishes the blood and allows for the metabolic process to go on, and the outgoing air which is recycled into the environment. I am installed as the deity within the sanctum sanctorum of everyone's heart. The ability to remember comes from me. True wisdom and perfect understanding come from me, as does the very power of rational thinking. The purpose of all the Holy Scriptures is to bring souls into remembrance of me. I am in fact the true author of all the sacred writings, and perfectly understand the true import and conclusion of all authoritative scriptural texts. Within the world we may observe two types of persons, the mortal and the immortal. Although all persons are subjected to death, those who have become united with me in divine communion can never in actual fact be defeated by death, because they are linked beyond all questions of mortality and immortality with the infinite sovereign of the galaxies, who lives on and remains the supermost of all personalities. Throughout the many lands of the world, and throughout the many pages of the Holy Scriptures, I am glorified as that supermost divinity, the transcendent Supreme Person, who lies beyond the destructible world, and who is the very source of the multitudes of imperishable souls. Those fortunate souls who develop the absolute conviction that I am personally the Supreme Lord are able thereby to understand everything clearly, and therefore absorb themselves in serving me with loving devotion, my dear Arjuna. O my pure-hearted friend, give full credence to these words of mine, which contain the clues whereby the most confidential of all revelations may be gained. Anyone who applies the power of intellect sincerely to this subject matter will come to possess infinite wisdom and experience total satisfaction.